Oh yeah!
Hello, friends! Peer pressure to use drugs is everywhere. What are you, a wimp? Come take another shot. No thanks. Shots! On the bright side, most people can pretty accurately list the negative effects of alcohol intoxication. Amongst marijuana users, though, not so much, which makes for interesting peer pressure. Nobody has ever overdosed on marijuana. It doesn't kill brain cells. That's a myth. It's never been linked to lung cancer. It's medicine! And based on the existing research, all of this is true, which is why many people criticize pot criminalization. Alcohol and tobacco cause far more serious health problems and death compared to marijuana. But not so fast, you pot peer pressures. Peer pressure isn't bad because it tells the truth. It's bad because it only tells one side of the story. Marijuana peer pressure emphasizes the idea that pot is the better drug because it doesn't have the negative physical effects of alcohol and tobacco. But it completely ignores the psychological, emotional, developmental, and social effects of the drug. And maybe that's because when we educate teens about the dangers of drug use, we focus on the physical effects. Our drug education isn't really focused on giving a balanced message of a drug's effect on a person's entire body, but more focused on scare tactics. And arguably, the physical effects are the scariest ones. Drunk driving accidents, death, and cancer are a lot scarier than the chance of drug addiction or mental health problems. Drugs don't just affect you physically. And in fact, most of marijuana's negative effects are psychological, emotional, developmental, and social. Here are some of the problems associated with marijuana use. The more frequent a person uses marijuana and the heavier the dosage each time, the more intensified these problems can be and the more problems can start to appear. A person's own tolerance plays a huge role in the degree to which marijuana can influence them. The earlier a person starts using marijuana, the more vulnerable he or she becomes to later mental health problems. There is a link between chronic marijuana use and anxiety, depression, and schizophrenia. As of now, it's not really clear whether marijuana use causes these problems, makes these problems worse, or whether marijuana use reflects a person's attempt to self-medicate symptoms that are already in existence. If only we could do some research on this. A person may be more vulnerable to experiencing problems with marijuana use if this person has a family history of substance abuse or dependence. Drug abuse in families is generational. If a person has severe drug addiction, it's pretty common to be able to trace it back as far as 3 generations. Marijuana is addictive. Pot peer pressurers will say that it isn't because you don't see the same withdrawal effects that you see with other drugs. For one example, it's not life-threatening if a person quits cold turkey, like with alcohol. And yeah, maybe compared to the withdrawal effects of other drugs, marijuana's withdrawal effects can be pretty mild. But for people who are seriously dependent on marijuana, it's extremely difficult to skip a day without weed being the only thing on their minds. If from the time a person wakes up to when they go to sleep, all they can think is weed, that's addiction. And that definitely influences a person's mental and emotional health, their social life, and their development if they're still an adolescent. So here's what pot peer pressurers usually say in response to these negative effects of marijuana. Marijuana is great for easing stress. I function a lot better after I've smoked a fat joint. Marijuana isn't addictive. People who can't stop smoking marijuana just have self-control problems. I smoke weed every day, and I still have straight A's. And you know what? For the people that are saying these things, they're probably true. But these statements reflect their own experience. You are very special. It's unfair to use your own experience with a drug to set a standard for how other people should or should not react to a drug. Some people can use a drug many times and walk away like it never happened, whereas other people fall into addiction the first time they try a drug. As a chapter leader of Students for Sensible Drug Policy, I don't condone or condemn drug use, which means that I don't hate on drug users and I don't hate on people who don't use drugs either. Rather, Students for Sensible Drug Policy members respect the right of each individual to make healthy and responsible decisions for themselves. Sensible drug policy relies on people being sensible with their drug use and with the information that they're spreading about a certain drug. And peer pressure just isn't very sensible. There are people out there who've seen their friends and family ruined by either drug abuse or the drug war, which are very real reasons to be against drug users or drug legalization. And just like pot lovers get offended when people say that there are no medical benefits to using marijuana and that all drug users are bad people, the people who've been hurt by drug abuse or the drug war also get offended when the people who are using drugs are peer pressuring others and saying that weed is the greatest thing in the world. Pot smokers need to be able to say, my experience with marijuana has been great and it's in fact improved improve the quality of my life. But I know it's not for everyone. Maybe then people on the flip side will be able to say, my experience with marijuana wasn't good. I saw my friends and family ruined by drug abuse. But I realized that responsible drug use does exist. And if it works for you, then good for you. Both sides need to give a little in order to gain a lot in terms of better drug education and better drug policies. So maybe next time, instead of pot peer pressuring a friend, give them a pot education. And don't do a half-assed job. There are already people doing that. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and stay sensible.